There's a review coming in terms of the Navy's capability, but does that missile emphasis and longer range emphasis extend to the Navy? We've got at the moment a plan for 9 of the Hunter-class frigates. They don't have much of a missile capability. So as part of that review, is that review open to say, hey, we might not need any of these? Is a potential scrapping of them on the table to shift towards more of a missile capability?
Oh, well, I wouldn't want to raise expectations about that. I think it's important that we are having a really a quick conditions check here, because the Defence Strategic Review makes a couple of really important observations about our surface fleet. One is that the current structure of the surface fleet was really imagined and designed when the country was still looking to purchase a diesel-electric powered submarine. And now that we are acquiring a much more capable submarine and a nuclear-powered submarine, that obviously has implications for the overall shape of the surface fleet. And the second observation that it made is that the way in which navies around the world are going is to look at having a larger number of smaller ships in terms of their major surface combatants. So as we are thinking about what we need over the next few years, but not just that, what we need over the next few decades, and that is the length of time that we're thinking about with the Defence Strategic Review, it makes sense to have a conditions check right now to see exactly what are the right numbers going into the 2030s, the 2040s, because that's the current time frame of the build that we're looking at doing.
AUKUS subs, you mentioned there, the cost of them. PBO figures out today show that the cost, it's got a bit of a breakdown of it. Of course, we know that the price tag is up to $368 billion. That only goes out to 2055, though. At that point, we will have built 5 subs that will have been delivered. So the final 3 subs seemingly are not included in that price tag. Is that accurate?
Well, what we've costed is through to the point where we are operating 8 nuclear-powered submarines, which is the fleet size that we are imagining in terms of our nuclear-powered submarines. And we've made the observation that we made the commitment that what we're looking at doing is building a continuous, or developing a continuous submarine building capacity in Adelaide. So, I mean, you could cost this thing out to the year 2100 if you like. But what we've said is that the cost of the program over the journey is about 0.15% of GDP. That's why we've given the number in those terms. You can contextualise that in the sense that we currently are spending 2% of GDP on our defence, with a view to that growing to 2.2% by the end of the decade. We have provided numerical figures out to the point in which we get to having 8 nuclear-powered submarines, and that's why we've done the costing in that way. But can I just say, Tom, that, I mean, I've seen the reporting today. This is the most transparent level of information that's being provided by government in respect of a defence acquisition ever, because we've not just provided information in respect of the acquisition of the submarines, we provide information in relation to the sustainment of them, and we're contextualising the cost over the journey, noting that really what we're doing is building an enduring capability which is intended goes on indefinitely.
And that 2.2% of GDP out to the end of the decade, is that as high as the figure gets? Is that factoring in what could be a lot of new spending that was outlined on Monday? I mean, what's your best estimate for perhaps what we peak at in terms of this defence spend as percentage of GDP?
Yeah, it's a good question. It doesn't take into account the Defence Strategic Review, which is why we made the statement on Monday that what we expect is that the amount that we spend on defence will grow beyond the existing trajectory. So we've made clear over the forward estimates that we can pursue the 6 priorities that we identified in our response to the Defence Strategic Review through a reprioritisation of money over the course of the next 4 years.
Yeah, which is why the forwards isn't much. You must have sorry to jump in, we're nearly out of time. You must have a ballpark for where it gets to ultimately. Are we talking 3, 4? I mean, how big is this going to be as an impost?
Well, firstly, the forwards is significant. A reprioritisation of $7.8 billion over the course of the next 4 years is a huge number, and it's a very significant set of decisions. Over the course of the decade and beyond, what we know is it's going to be more than the existing trajectory. And there's obviously a lot more work that needs to be done in relation to putting a number on it, which is what's going to play out as we go forward. But the one thing we can say for sure is that we inherited a current funding trajectory that we committed to this time last year as we led into the last election. We now see that over the course of the next 10 years, having done the Defence Strategic Review, that the amount that we'll need to spend over that period will be more than the current trajectory.
All right. Well, no, I suppose down the track, how much more? Defence Minister Richard Marles, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.